Hey yo, football fans, it's another great year. Fantasy football fiends, grab your beer. Giving you the best draft tips for all your picks. Starts and sits to the waiver wire fix. From my drafts galore to stats that's hardcore. Triple F does it all, have y'all screaming more. So sit back, relax, let the experts prevail. JT Magnum, Siggy Guns never fail. What's up, fantasy football fans? My name is JT Magnum. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Fiends. We are doing our Stardom Situm show. This is week 1 of the Stardom Situm show, and I want to thank everybody that's new to the channel. Everybody that's new to the channel that has subscribed. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Everybody that's been commenting, whether it be good or bad, thank you very much for your analysis. Thank you very much for your help and your feedback. I appreciate it. I know Siggy appreciates it, and he's not here today. His wife's pregnant, and you know she's pretty much due very soon, so he couldn't make it today. So unfortunately, I gotta do everything by myself today. And which brings me to this. Let me describe Fantasy Football Fiends for you guys that are new. The Stardom Situm show that we do. At the bottom is a ticker. I will display my rankings there at the bottom, whether it be quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight ends, defense. We don't talk about kickers. We don't need to. And the reason why we put these rankings down there is because at Fantasy Football Fiends, our Stardom Situm, when I basically started the show, I didn't want to talk about the big names all the time. We talk about them here and there, a little bit here and there, but we try not to talk about them all the time for starts and sits because you already know to start them. I'm not going to tell you to start Adrian Peterson, you know, against somebody when you already know you're going to start him because he's your stud on your team. Why would you sit him? The only way I tell you to sit him if he's facing a defense that's so ridiculously good that he's not going to, you know, he's not going to get yards, and then I'll risk it and tell you to sit him. In that case, if I'm telling you to sit him, then that's a good suggestion. But I wouldn't tell you to start him because it's just dumb to say things like that. But we here try to talk about the middle tier players, the lower tier players, and play people like that we tell you to start to help you out. In case you have that thing where you're just like, oh, should I start this guy over this guy? Should I start this person over this person? You don't know who to start. I'm here to help it out a little bit and maybe sway you into a way that way. Or maybe you don't take my advice and you go the opposite way and you do good then. Who knows? You never know. That's what makes fantasy football fun. I'm not always 100% right, but I've been right a good portion of the time, which is good. Thank goodness, because or else I wouldn't, you know, try to do this on YouTube if I'm just going to pick wrong things all the time. And like I said, I'm not always right, but I have won fantasy championships. I've won at least 1 to 2 championships a year since 2006, since I started playing, and I've been kicked out of so many leagues actually because I've done so well. But that's another story. But anyways, like I said, the ticker will display everything down there, and like I said, this is a one-man operation. I edit it. I basically direct it, I produce it, I upload it, I do everything here. So I apologize for any misspellings. I apologize for us not pronouncing names correctly all the time. Like I said, we don't have a team of directors, we don't have a team of producers, we don't have people to say cut and you know, start over again, and we don't have that kind of time and things like that to be able to do that. I don't get, like, you know, crazy money to do this. This is basically me doing this on my spare time for you guys. So with all that being said, let's get right into the show. This is going to be the stardom portion of it, the stardoms. We usually do waiver wires at the beginning, but there's no need to do waiver wire pickups on the first week or the first week 1 of the season, because if you've already drafted, you're pretty comfortable with your team that you've drafted. So moving on, like I said, my top 3 quarterbacks for starts this week are Carson Palmer, Eli Manning, and Alex Smith. And I will talk about Alex Smith. I think he's going to have a good week this week against that Texans defense. I think he's got a lot of weapons, obviously, in Jamal Charles that command a lot of attention, Jeremy Maclin that commands a lot of attention, and Travis Kelce over the middle and catching balls deep, very athletic tight end. And with the fact that the Texans now have a much improved defensive front, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to run the ball well. So Alex Smith is going to be passing a lot more, and they might be trailing in this game enough where Alex Smith is going to have to pass a lot more. Whether it be the screen game or the short dink and dunks like he's always doing, he's going to get a lot of yards. He's going to rack up the yards this week, and I think Alex Smith is definitely a must start this week. So if you have like a Cam Newton and you have like an Alex Smith on your bench, I would start Alex Smith over Cam Newton this week. Just saying. The top 3 running back starts this week. My top 3 are Chris Ivory, Mark Ingram and Alfred Blue going against that Chiefs defense. I love Chris Ivory this week. Chris Ivory going against that Cleveland Browns defense. If anybody remembers last year, Cleveland Browns, I believe, was dead last against the run last year. They were horrible against the run last year. I don't think they did much to shore up that defensive line. I mean, I think they got like one defensive tackle this year. They haven't really done too much to shore it up, and I don't see them really stopping the run. They got a great pass defense. And that, that's a great thing. They got a great secondary. But when it comes to running the ball, especially with that Jets offensive line is built to run the ball. And I think they're going to have a field day with Chris Ivory, especially with a hard-nosed runner like that. He's going to pick up a lot of extra yards. And I see him definitely having a couple touchdowns this week against that team, especially with them maybe possibly having turnovers and things like that with that Jets defense and them having some short field to work with. I think they're going to score some points too. And I think Chris Ivory's the man to do it. So, my top wide receivers this week are going to be Julian Edelman, Jordan Matthews, and Jarvis Landry. And I like Julian Edelman going against that Pittsburgh secondary. They are garbage. They're horrible. I don't know if you saw what the Bills did to him in preseason. I know it's just preseason, but the Pittsburgh secondary, they just have no one on that secondary to stop anything. The one thing about this team, they're going to have to outscore teams this year, which they have a great offense, and they're going to do so, but going against the New England Patriots and Tom Brady coming off that Super Bowl championship, just beat the NFL in the court case. He's going to be hungry, ready, and they're going to be all over that team passing the ball. So I don't like Pittsburgh Steelers' chances this week going against that New England team who likes to pass the ball a lot. So, moving on, my top tight ends this week. Number 1, Travis Kelce. Number 2, Delaney Walker. And number 3, Vernon Davis. And I'll talk about Vernon Davis because I don't really talk about the 49ers guys too much because obviously I'm a 49er fan. I don't want people to think I'm too biased towards them. But this week I think he has a favorable matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, being that the Minnesota Vikings have a young and hungry defense. Their secondary is really good, but their secondary is going to be keying mostly on Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden. I don't think the linebackers or their safeties can hang with a Vernon Davis, and with a Torrey Smith who could take a top off of a defense basically and get deep, I think that leaves a little bit more room for Vernon Davis to roam underneath. And I think with him coming out of the H-back role and also sitting in there in the slot or playing that tight end position, basically the natural tight end position, I think he's going to have a lot of chances and a lot of opportunities to go either deep or to catch a lot of underneath stuff, especially against that Vikings, like I said, Vikings good secondary that they have. But I like him this week to be Colin Kaepernick's go-to boy. So, the top defenses this week, the top starts for defenses. Number 1, the Miami Dolphins going against the Redskins. Number 2, the Jets, like I said, going against Cleveland. And number 3, the Tennessee Titans going against Jameis Winston and the Bucks. I love Miami this week going against the Redskins. I think that Kirk Cousins is a turnover machine. I don't think he has what it takes. He just got named starter over Robert Griffin III. And with the addition of Ndamukong Suh, basically hounding the quarterback, being able to get penetration, I think he's going to panic, throw a few picks. And I really like Miami's defense this year, and especially, like I said, against this Redskins team. I don't think or if Alfred Morris is even going to be able to run the ball or do anything this week. So, we go into the sit-em portion of the show, and my 3 sits this week, one of them might surprise you. Number 1, Drew Brees going against the going against the Cardinals. And number 2, Joe Flacco going against the Denver Broncos, whose secondary is ridiculous. And number 3, Cam Newton going against a young and hungry Jaguars defense. And Cam Newton, I will talk about, he's minus a lot of weapons. Cam Newton, if Kelvin Benjamin was playing this game, I probably wouldn't put Cam Newton here. But he's got to build a rapport with his new wide receivers, basically, with the young rookie and Devin Funchess. He's got, basically, they just traded for Kevin Norwood out of Seattle. They have Ted Ginn Jr., Jericho Cotchery. They're really thin at wide receiver, and he's got to, like I said, he's got to build a rapport with them, and I don't see him doing that, especially already, to begin the season. So against, especially, like I said, a young, hungry Jaguars team that's going to be looking to basically, feed off of him, basically. And I think he's going to struggle coming out the gate. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad fantasy football player the whole season, but he's definitely not going to be a great one, at least at the start of the year. So if you have him on your team, like I said, if you have somebody else, I would definitely sit Cam Newton on this one. For the sits for running backs, I have Alfred Morris. I already talked about him going against that Miami team. Number 2, Frank Gore going against a ridiculously good Buffalo Bills defense under Rex Ryan. And number 3, Jamal Charles. I talked about him as well going against the Houston Texans. And I'll talk about, like I said, Alfred Morris. And Ndamukong Suh makes a big difference on that defensive front. It's going to be really hard for him to break free, get any kind of runs whatsoever, especially with that Miami defensive front. So look for him to struggle, especially in this game. With Kirk Cousins not being able to pass, him probably seeing more 8-man fronts than he's probably seen in a while, and just not being able to do anything. I mean, actually, pretty much he sees him in the past with Robert Griffin in the last couple of years, because teams aren't scared of him anymore either. So look for him to have just not a rough. I mean, he might be good for the rest of the year, but for certain games, but he's definitely not going to do much in this first one. Wide receiver sits. DeAndre Hopkins going against the Chiefs. Number 2, Brandon Cooks going against the Arizona Cardinals, and Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. And number 3, Deshaun Jackson going against that Miami secondary. That Miami defense is going to be very good, like I said, this year. And I'll talk about Brandon Cooks going against a hungry Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, and that Arizona Cardinals defense. They like to blitz. They like to get after the quarterback. And Brandon Cooks, Drew Brees is one of those rhythm passers, and I think they're going to basically be, pressing up on Brandon Cooks as much as they can. And although he might be quick and be able to escape from it, I don't know how fast they're going to be able to throw the ball to him. With Drew Brees going to have some pressure in his face a lot of the time, especially with the way Arizona just gambles a lot on defense. So look for Brandon Cooks to struggle, at least with Patrick Peterson and people all over him. All right, the tight end sits this week. I have number 1, Ben Watson, going against the Arizona Cardinals as well. Number 2, Martellus Bennett. And number 3, Kyle Rudolph. And I will talk about Kyle Rudolph because the 49ers have a very underrated linebacker in Michael Wilhoit, who can actually grades well at covering linebacker or covering tight ends. He's actually a very good coverage linebacker. And with Navarro Bowman back, he doesn't have to play the role of run stuffer or stopping anyone. All he has to do is basically charge after the tight end or run after them, keep up with them and things like that. And I think he can keep up with Kyle Rudolph. And I think he's going to do a good job with that, especially with Navarro Bowman blitzing on defense. So look for a rough game for Kyle Rudolph, as the 49ers have never really been kind to tight ends. Not very many tight ends have done well against the 49ers in past years, and there's a reason why, because they have some good coverage linebackers. So the top sits for defenses this week. Number 1, the Steelers. If you pick the Steelers, you have to be a Steelers fan, first of all, because I don't think they're a top 12 defense at all this year. I don't even think they're in the top 20 range. So I just don't like them. They're going to have to outscore a lot of teams on offense. I don't see their defense turning into very much this year. I don't see them being able to stop the pass. So number 2, the Eagles, and number 3, the Bills. And the Eagles, the reason why I sit in the week, they're a much improved defense. They're going to be a very much improved defense this year. But the only reason I'm sitting is because they're going against Matt Ryan and the Falcons in Atlanta, with Julio Jones back, Roddy White back there, Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman running the ball. It's going to be a little bit rough task for the Eagles to be able to stop Matt Ryan in that offense, especially at home in Atlanta. They play very well at home, and the Eagles are going to have a rough go at it in the first week of the season. They're going to be good this year. They might cause a little turnovers here and there, but I don't think they're going to do so in this first game. They're not going to have that great of a first game. So look for the Eagles to struggle in week 1. All right, that does it for the sits. Let's get into the sleepers. My top 3 sleepers this week are number 1, Melvin Gordon, number 2, Bishop Sankey, and number 3, Doug Baldwin. And I will talk about Doug Baldwin. He is a very good wide receiver to insert this week because they're playing the St. Louis Rams. St. Louis Rams do not have that great of a secondary. And on top of that, Russell Wilson has owned the Rams. I know they want to think that the Rams are going to get after Russell Wilson and they struggle against the Rams and this and that, but Russell Wilson's ran for 100 yards, passed for 200. He's run for 100, passed for 300 against them. He's one of those quarterbacks that he's so elusive, gets away from the rush, and he keeps his eyes downfield. And Doug Baldwin's one of those wide receivers that when Russell Wilson does that, he always finds a way to get open, finds a way for Russell Wilson to hit him, and they make big plays. And he's just one of those big time wide receivers that can catch the ball in those big time spots. He's, like I said, he's not a stud at wide receiver, but my goodness, does he get open? I think he's going to benefit, especially with Jimmy Graham roaming underneath now. It only benefits Baldwin more on the outside and being able to get open. So I like him this week against the Rams. And he's a good sleeper to put in there in case, you need somebody, you're on the edge with somebody and you need somebody to put in there. He's probably actually on the waiver wire. Not many people pick him up, but he's one of my breakout players of the year. And I think Doug Baldwin's going to do well this week. So that does it for the first show for Stardom Sit 'em this year. or for this week, for week 1, I should say. Make sure you leave comments in the comment section. Stay tuned for this week. I'm going to do a live show. Not sure when, but I will schedule it this week so that you guys can get an hour to ask me your fantasy football questions, or just, you know, shoot the breeze with me, talk fantasy football and everything like that. And second, go to magnumsportsnetwork.com. All the updated rankings will be there. If players get hurt, or if somebody all of a sudden gets scratched and not playing, you know, just things happen in fantasy football. I will change the rankings. I will put them up on the website, and you guys can, you know, see the injuries, see the things that are happening, and try to stay up to date as much as you can with fantasy football. You can also check out the other sports stuff on magnumsportsnetwork.com as well if you like, and check out the video and the media and stuff like that there. It's a great website. It's finally up and running, and, you know, I got a team of writers that are, you know, working their tail off, you know, getting news and putting stuff up there for you guys. So that's it. Like I said, leave comments in the comment section. Let me know who your sleepers are. Let me know who your top quarterbacks are this week. It's always good to share knowledge and give advice. Even I, you know, look at it, and I try to read the comment section as much as I can during the week. I do have another job. You know, I have a full-time day job, so I do this, you know, on my spare time, but I try my best to, you know, hit the comment section up and try to respond the best I can. Follow me on Twitter, JT_Magnum816, or follow Siggy if you like his advice the best, at SiggyV on Twitter. Let us know your, you know, your questions there as well. All right. So thank you for watching the first show. Good luck in the week 1 of the fantasy football season, and I'm out. Peace.